Justin Bieber giving us 2 tickets to the gun show, or at least that's what TMZ labels the article. Justin Bieber posting on social media him shooting a variety of guns, handguns, shotguns, AR-15. Man, what does this signal about the culture today? Also, Texas Democrats might be arrested. Well, that would be fun. I think so, at least. Maybe not for them. But why do you have to flee the state to just not show up? Surely these people could have chosen another route, gone to grandma's house instead. This is not the first time that they've done all this. They've done this in the past. It's been a problem in Texas. Democrats think that they can just fly to Illinois to harbor them while they choose not to perform the duties that they were elected to do. Also, it looks like there's some boiling water when it comes to these 10 commandments being placed inside classroom. Arkansas had their bill temporarily blocked just the other day. This on the right as Texas is about to pass the same bill requiring 10 commandments be posted in all the classrooms. So definitely an interesting day. Aaron, what you got?
I'm a believer, Jason. Isn't that what Justin Bieber fans are called? Believers?
But believers, yes.
Believers? I don't know. Are they
Yeah.
believers or believers?
I am now believing in Justin Bieber's, well, I like where he's heading right now.
I'm believing in the cultural shift right now because what's happening is it's no longer cool to be Democrat. I want to read Milo Morai's gab.com. If you're not one of the cool kids yet, join it. He gabbed. Somewhere along the way, being a Democrat became uncool. You might think that isn't a big deal, but if you consider how long it took for that to happen, it's a big deal, and that's something you can change overnight. It is similar to putting an aircraft carrier in a U-turn. You can't snap your fingers to make that happen. No one but the old crazies want to be a registered Democrat or those that can be easily bought, but it's not enough. Yes, the trend has changed, and it's a big thing indeed. So DC Drano brought attention to this just days after Democrats started calling for a national ban on AR-15s. Justin Bieber posted himself shooting an AR-15 to his more than 400 million followers. American Eagle also doubled down on their ad with Sydney Sweeney. We are taking the culture back. Even though DC Drano's not going to be invited to any of my kids' birthday parties, I agree with him. I think that the culture is back. I was just telling Jason off air, you could not have celebrated the hotness of a young white woman and have international pop star Justin Bieber shooting an AR-15 to his 400 million followers in the same week 6 months ago. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Because any celebration of any beautiful young white lady was equivalent to Nazism, apparently. And you would never in a million years imagine someone like Justin Bieber holding an AR-15 shooting guns like he's the Marlboro Man on Instagram. So the culture's back, dude.
I mean, you should look at the stock market. Like, shares of American Eagles surged 20% after Trump called Sydney Sweeney's campaign hottest ad out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at it the other day, yesterday. I was like, holy crap, I should have bought some American Eagle stock. It didn't go through my mind the other day when we were talking about it, but it should have.
Totally.
I should have been like, man, I should go buy some American Eagle stock. To be honest with you, I didn't realize it was a publicly traded company. But, that's on me.
I think that's a great stock strategy. I think what you're touching on is actually, and no, we're not financial advisors, so, I guess we got to satisfy the SEC requirement. Any advice here is not financial advice. But, yeah, I mean, if you follow news trends and then bet on stock accordingly, you could become very rich.
I think you have here a dying brand that just had a massive resurgence into the American forefront. This was a brand that, as we said the other day, heavily in malls, not a whole lot of presence outside of their store, inside of malls. And so what happens when all of the malls in the United States are pretty much dying? How do you reinvigorate a brand like that? And I think we just saw how. And what's interesting, too, is I keep saying malls are dying, but at least locally, I think maybe we're starting to see that kids are returning back to malls as hangout spots. That could be exciting.
That would be cool. I mean, I spent a lot of time at the mall at 15, 16, going to the payphone. Mom, pick me up. But
The malls on the East Coast are insane. Like we were just outside of Philadelphia in Valley Forge, and I dropped the kids off at the mall to hang out when we were out there for a competition. I went to the cigar lounge, and this mall is like blocks long. It goes over the top of the road. You drive underneath the mall to get to the other side. And I was like, "Where are you?" Because I told him, I'm like, "I will pick you up where I drop you off." Well, they were on the other side of the mall, which was like a half a mile away.
yeah, I don't think we're free falling into a cultural shift. I think that there's some push and some pull happening. I think about a company like Shields. You know, Shields, if you're not familiar with Shields, we have it here in Colorado, and it's essentially this super mall just dedicated to the outdoor sports niche. So anything that you can imagine, from camping chairs to golf clubs to lacrosse equipment to baseball mitts to, I wish Jason would stop flicking that freaking lighter. I'm just kidding. To everything imaginable under the sun at this mall. But it's just sports equipment, and it's always packed, and it's happening in the age of Amazon under the nose of Jeff Bezos. And so we were sold this bag of goods, call it in the 2010s, which is, the dot-com era is going to replace everything that's brick and mortar. But yet I'm seeing the American people almost stand their ground and saying, I want to support an independent family-owned business where I can walk into a retail environment and stroll the aisles and touch the goods and smell the rubber from the Adidas shoes. Like, there's this desire to still hold on to the old world, and maybe not completely jump into the pool of the new world order. I don't think it's just us getting swept into this new world order. I think that there's people holding on to the old world, and I think we're seeing it in the examples that you're saying. Justin Bieber, Sarah Sweeney, people still people going to malls in the East Coast, Shields, all of it. But should we talk about Texas?
We could talk about Texas. You got an article pulled up?
Breaking: House votes to issue arrest warrants for Democrat lawmakers who fled the state. Chamber doors have been locked. So Governor Abbott says if House Democrats don't return by 3 p.m. today, which was yesterday, he'll move to declare their seats vacant and replace them, citing an Attorney General opinion on lawmakers abandoning office. He also warns fundraising to dodge quorum fines could be a felony and vows to seek extradition. So it looks like the House Democrats in Texas maybe have a habit of just going on vacation when they don't want to be around for certain votes, is the way I'm interpreting it. And Governor Abbott's not having it. He wants the Sergeant of Arms to arrest them.
I mean, listen, you cannot vacate your duties that you have when you are elected to office. When you file that paperwork and say that you are running for office, you are running to serve the great people of whatever state, whatever city, whatever municipality, whatever county, whatever country. That is who you are serving. You have a job to do. And to simply block votes or block the operation of a state because you don't want to sit there for a vote, that is wrong. That is not okay. And it's not okay for them to flee to Illinois. It's not okay for Illinois to be harboring them either.
Illinois is harboring Texas refugees.
Illinois is harboring Texas legislators. And like I said, this is not the first time this has happened. This has actually happened before in Texas. Like this is a common Texas issue with these Texas Democrats. Now, whether or not the governor will be able to just fill those vacancies as he pleases, I wish that's how that worked. Number one, I think almost every state, they have to replace them with more Democrats. They can't replace them with whoever they want, which means another Democrat will come in and fill that. Now the question is, will those Democrats flee too? I don't know. That's just a mess.
Every time we talk about Texas, I feel like I'm talking about like a foreign country. Like we're talking about Albania. Like every time we're talking about Governor Abbott, he's always doing something wild. Like, yeah, we're gonna go arrest him. We're gonna send Florida man bounty hunter to go get him. Like what? But his letter. Go ahead, Jason.
I mean, they just had one of the largest disasters in this country.
Right.
Fiscally, lives lost, the toll that it took on communities in Texas. They just had a massive disaster, and that's what these legislators are doing. They're disappearing.
Disgusting.
I mean, they're still searching for bodies.
Yeah.
They're still search and rescue crews from around the country going to Texas to look for remains.
Yeah. Well, Governor Abbott literally just said everything you said, but in a much more legislative tone. He writes in his letter, and he again in the context of referring to the Democrats leaving their post, that amounts to an abandonment or forfeiture of an elected state office. When the governor calls a special session, our Constitution provides that the legislature shall meet, and then he quotes the specific section in the Texas Constitution. It's not optional; it is a duty. So yeah, 100%. Don't mess with Texas. Apparently, if you didn't know, now you know. Moving along, or do you have a comment on that, Mr. Lupo?
No, go for it.
Okay, what else do we have in the kitchen?
A federal judge temporarily blocks some Arkansas districts from displaying the Ten Commandments in their classroom as required under a new state law. The injunction from U.S. District Judge Timothy Brooks, an appointee of former President Barack Obama, impacts 4 districts in northwest Arkansas and comes in response to a lawsuit filed by a coalition of multi-faith families who argued that the religious display requirement violates their religious freedom and parental rights. The law now cannot go into effect until further court action is taken, according to KUAR. Why would Arkansas pass an obviously unconstitutional law? Brooks wrote in his 35-page ruling. Most likely because the state is part of a coordinated strategy among several states to inject Christian religious doctrine into public school classrooms. Act 573 is not neutral with respect to religion. He also was quoted by KUAR as saying, noting that the Ten Commandments law requires that a specific version of that scripture be used, one that the uncontroverted evidence in this case shows is associated with Protestantism and is exclusionary of other faiths. Arkansas law signed earlier this year by Republican Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders takes effect Tuesday and requires that the Ten Commandments to be prominently displayed in public school classrooms and libraries. Lawsuit against it was filed on behalf of the families by the American Civil Liberties Union, Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, and the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
I'm going to surprise you, Jason. I'm going to play a little devil's advocate game because I think the best way to really understand our values is by allowing them to be challenged. So I hear you say, and allegedly this is the argument that the opponents of this move are making, those who don't not want the Ten Commandments publicly displayed and endorsed by the Arkansas state legislature, that the crux of their argument is it's unconstitutional because it's essentially a state endorsed religion. Is that the crux of the argument that opponents to this are making?
The only argument that you have is the Establishment Clause, which is that basically the government is creating a government religion by doing this.
Okay.
That's a hard... If you were to just look at it and look at the Establishment Clause and look at what the law entails, it's very hard to say, okay, this is establishing a religion. Because most school libraries also have the Quran and all sorts of other religious texts. Sure. And many schools across the country still have world religion classes.
Yeah, I did.
Where Christianity is hardly covered or
Sure.
not covered in a very good light.
Sure.
All across America. And so when you look at past precedent and apply that with the Constitution and look at this law, there's a potential that this law might not hold up. However, we did see back when the statues, remember the Ten Commandment statues are put into place, Guy ran it over with his truck.
Yeah.
The Satanists. That's where they really started to spawn.
Yeah.
10 Commandments. They were allowed to keep those in the States.
Sure.
And so it's very interesting to look at past precedent when it comes to issues like this, because they're not necessarily requiring kids to recite it. They're not requiring kids to read it. They're just requiring that it be displayed.
Yeah, and I don't see anywhere in the Constitution that would prevent them from doing so, because the First Amendment and the Establishment Clause both it looks at both texts, tell us that in order for the Arkansas bill to be unconstitutional or to violate the Establishment Clause would require that Arkansas impose and mandate that the children, like you said, for example, recite it or follow it. And that's not what's being done. What's being done is, it's, to quote this article that was clearly written by a Marxist, inject Christian doctrine, like we're injecting, the COVID-19 vaccine with the protein spikes into the blood or something. But no, what we're doing, and what I'm hearing Arkansas is doing, is they're restoring biblical morality in the public square. They're saying we are a Christian state and a Christian nation, and we're unapologetically promoting and supporting Holy Scripture. And in a Christian nation, you can do that. And our Constitution, I know that offends people. I realize that makes atheists and those who hate God uncomfortable, and they don't like that idea. But I also don't like the idea of homosexual authors and text and scholarly work in my public schools. But I have to accept that because I live in a plural society, right? I mean, I live in a society of free thinkers and free people. So I have to accept that the same way you have to accept living in a Christian nation. So no, I applaud the decision. I think it's a good decision. I think that we should have more of this across all 50 states. I don't see this as a violation of any of the Constitution or the Establishment Clause at all. What else we got, Jason?
Well, those are the big stories. Sydney Sweeney revealed as registered Republican. There's a new article from TMZ as well. Boy, do we love that TMZ is now online.
I like how we're referring to TMZ for breaking news at this point.
Hey, you know what? They're doing a good job.
They're doing a better job than the New York Slimes, the toilet paper of record.
I mean, she's part of the Republican Party. Good for her. I mean, good. Like, seriously, this is what the Republican Party needs, and this is what the Republican Party has, I think, profited on for so long.
Hot white chicks in jeans.
Sure, but the idea that like you can be normal.
Yeah.
The idea of normalcy coming back.
Make normal again.
Like, it's huge. Make America normal again. I love it. Like, the idea that you can be young and beautiful and not have blue hair or purple hair, piercings everywhere. I mean, some of what these people are doing to their bodies is like absolutely sickening. I mean, I'm like, I didn't know you could put metal where some of these people put metal.
Well, I didn't know a woman's biceps could be bigger than my thighs.
I'm not against that. I'm sorry. I'm
women with big arms?
As long as they're like athletic women.
No, I'm saying morbidly obese women. In
no,
spandex,
morbidly obese. No, thank you.
With spandex and like six stomachs kind of rolling out at TJ Maxx and at Ross.
Yeah, no, thank you. I thought you were talking about like bodybuilding, like female.
No. Not at all. No, I think make America normal.
Real
again.
female bodybuilding, not men masquerading in female bodybuilding.
Sure. No, I definitely think that we should make America normal again. I think this appeal to like make America 1994 again would be another great slogan. Men are men, women are women. Paris Hilton's doing Carl's Jr.'s commercials again, and just red-blooded, Justin Bieber, shooting rounds out of his AR-15. Like, it's all coming back, man.
So if we want 1994, do we need to make like Justin Bieber unborn again?
Yes. In this same context, I want to talk about a podcast I saw yesterday. If anybody isn't familiar with Anna Kasparian, she is probably, I would argue, the queen of the left in terms of like podcasting and media influence. She's been around since 2003. She started the Young Turks with Cenk Uygur. Always been virulently liberal, always been progressive, attack dog for Trump, very far left. A lot of what she's said throughout the years has repelled me and has made me just not like Anna Kasparian a lot. And then I found out she was on Tucker Carlson, and she did almost what felt like a 3-hour sit down that felt like 10 minutes, where they talked about everything and all things. And it was truly fascinating, especially for someone who's been sort of following, the culture and geopolitics for a number of years, at least going back to 9/11. And to see, someone like Tucker Carlson so far extreme to the right, if whatever these labels mean today, I don't think they mean what they used to mean before. And that's actually something they interestingly discuss on the topic. But what the reason I'm sharing this, ladies and gentlemen, is I feel like the labels from the past are no longer mean what they mean. That people that used to self-identify as progressive and those who used to self-identify as conservative are finding more and more in common. There's this awakening that's happening. The false left-right paradigm, I think, is starting to crumble. And we're seeing points of agreement now that we're having a conversation. And that's actually something Anna and Tucker talked about. Is Anna says, we just need to be able to talk. Like, she was so incensed with people, her audience, a lot of her colleagues saying, how dare you go to Tucker Carlson's show and talk to him? He's the Antichrist. These are the Trumpies. These are the bad people. We don't talk to those people. And Anna's like, I'm not going to let anybody tell me who I can and cannot talk to. And as Anna was like sharing, I mean, she loves freedom. She loves liberty. And she's a journalist and she pursues truth. And yes, she's coming from progressive lens, but it was such an encouraging podcast, because I feel like what we're witnessing as a country are people that used to be so divided by false instruments. Those false instruments are being exposed. They're dying off. We're coming together. Tucker Carlson and Anna Kasparian agreed on the fact that we should be questioning whether there's foreign nations that are in control and influence our government and our politicians. They agreed on the fact that people who disagree with each other should be able to sit down and talk and have conversations. They agreed on this really interesting point about we can disagree on abortion and guns and everything, but if we cannot agree on the fact that we don't have a government that represents its people, then none of these conversations even matter. And it was the majority of the conversation was about agreeing on things. And so I would just encourage anyone listening to this, watch the Anna Kasparian Tucker Carlson podcast. I think it's going to give you a lot of hope. And it also, I hope, allows us to stop hating the quote unquote other side. Anna Kasparian said, like, she loves America. Her heart breaks. She lives in Los Angeles and she's seen the fentanyl victims with the fentanyl bending over. I just heard compassion in her voice. She does not like Gavin Newsom. She is opposed to his policies. And this is the quote unquote leader of the left. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, and forgive me if I'm being too idealistic or maybe overly optimistic or hopeful, but I think there's hope for America. I think there's hope for the people to come together, to bypass the gatekeepers, the oligarchs, the overlords, and actually come together and make some change.
I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that women were long sold this false bag of goods that the Democrats had their back. The African American community was long sold this false bag of goods that the Democrats had their back. The Hispanic community was long sold this false bag of goods that the Democrats had their back. The farmers were long sold this false bag of goods that the Democrats had their back. The union workers. You could keep on going down this list. But the truth of the matter is that they've used these portions of society and they placate on their race, their gender, their ethnicity for votes. And it's wrong. If you want to look at why we still have racism in this country, point the finger back at the Democrats.
Yeah.
Point it back at the Democrats. You want to know why we still have gender inequality, which in most cases we don't? Look at the Democrats. They want this to continue because it's how they continue to get the vote. If there's no racism, there's no Democrat vote. If there's no sexism, there's no Democrat vote.
There always has to be a problem.
There has to be a problem. The Democrats need this to continue. This is who is still causing these problems. So you look at somebody like Anna Kasparian. By the way, she's way too good looking for CNN.
Absolutely.
Because none of those. Never mind.
I'm glad somebody.
We're not going to go down that path. But anyways, this is women in journalism. What choices do they have? And I'm not talking about 2025, where now we have independent media, shows like this, shows like, those on Newsmax and whatever.
Corporate media.
I'm talking about corporate media, traditional media. What choice did they have?
Yeah.
Their only choice, if they want to go into journalism, is to go into CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, and then they're ingrained in this trash of what the Democrat Party is.
Right. They get swallowed up by the system, and if they go in with good intentions, they end out a complete vampire, right?
100%.
Yeah, or if they're a real female journalist like Cheryl Atkinson, who used to be the Washington bureau at CBS, was told to resign because she got too good. I mean, if you actually pursue truth, if you actually want to speak truth to power, you will not be employed in corporate media. It's the reason why legacy media is dead. It's not dying, it's dead. I mean,
it's not journalism. There's no such thing as journalism anymore.
No, journalism's dead.
Like
rock and roll.
And here's my hot take.
That's hot.
Any attempt to try to bring back the idea of this nonpartisan kind of centrist journalism, I don't think will be met with any viewership. I think that people want the edginess. I think people want the take from each side of the party. I think that nobody wants neutral journalism anymore.
No. And generationally, consumer tastes have changed. I'm looking at this, forgive me, but I'm looking at this as a marketer. I'm looking at this from the lens of business. When you introduce a product to market, the first question you ask is, how will the audience perceive this? How will it be received in the marketplace, right? Is there a demand? And are we communicating the value of our product in a way that speaks to the desires and the needs of the intended audience? So in yesteryear, legacy media was built to serve the baby boomer, because cable TV came out when baby boomers were in their prime. They were in their 30s and their 40s when Fox News launched, I believe, in 1995 or 96. And I want my MTV. Sorry, that was really annoying. But that all happened, when the boomers were in their 30s, buying houses at their peak earning years. So corporate media was built to serve the baby boomer. And what was the consumer taste of the baby boomer? Authoritative and official. They wanted a man in a suit, a woman in a business suit, in a studio speaking very professionally. I'm Tom Brokaw. And thank you for listening to Spiritual Insurgency. I'm Aaron Lujan. I'm Jason Lupo, and this is spiritual. And this is 60 Minutes. Dun, 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 with the trumpet, all of it was theatrics. It was performative, and that worked. It got the baby boomers to go into debt, to take us off the gold standard, to get us into numerous wars, to sell us on vaccines. It worked. The corporate mouthpiece worked. Well, fast forward to the 2010s and 2020s, and who's sitting in the driver's seat now? Now the core demographic are your millennials, and very, very closely, very soon, we're going to have Gen Z sitting in the driver's seat. What is the consumer taste of these generations? They want authenticity. They want sincerity. They almost want an unorthodox approach that they can relate to. I mean, it's the reason why I act like a fool most of the time on this show, because I don't think that anyone would tune in if I was listening or reading from the teleprompter and speaking like an actor. Jason, that just doesn't work anymore. Do you agree with that, Jason?
I do. I think that the public doesn't want that anymore. And I think that now that there's an alternative, we're seeing that a lot of these stations are moving back towards center. CNN has moved back towards center because they're seeing that their viewership is falling off because people are going elsewhere for media. Now, does that mean that they want straight up news with no commentary? I don't think so. I don't think that's where this population is at. I don't think that's where society is at. But I think that they want to hear both sides of the story, and they want true, unadulterated takes of those sides. They don't want anybody going, well, I can't say that because I might get canceled. That's where I think people are heading. I'm going to kind of play this video for you. I'd like to close with this.
Sure.
CNBC host clashes with Senator Warren on Mamdani, raising taxes in fiery exchange. Here you go.
Pocahontas.
You mentioned Mamdani, and you are in New York, sort of speaking in behalf of him to a certain extent. I wonder, though, often we see this, and this is a local election. New York does not operate in a vacuum. It competes with other cities. And so this idea of somehow raising taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers, who, by the way, I would point out, pay roughly 15% of their income right now between city and state, raising taxes on them will simply drive them away. Shouldn't the focus of a mayor be on delivering services to the constituents of the city and doing that by raising the most revenue as possible without chasing businesses and the high-income taxpayers out of the city? Because they can go to Austin, they can go to Dallas, they can go to Atlanta, they can go to Nashville. This is your issue. It's a national issue, not a local issue.
The issue is affordability. Do you know how many working families are chased out of New York City every day because they can't afford housing, they can't afford groceries, they can't afford child care? What Zoran is saying is, I want people to be able to afford to live in New York City. That's what keeps it a vibrant city. That's what makes people want to live
Nobody
here.
disagrees with that, Senator, but raising taxes in order to do it? Why is that the answer?
Oh, dear. Are you worried that billionaires are going to go hungry?
No, I'm worried that they're going to leave and spend their money elsewhere.
They've threatened to do that over and over and over.
And they have. They've left.
But here's the thing.
And Goldman Sachs, when they create new jobs, they do it in Dallas. And Blackstone won't build a new headquarters. They go on and on.
Yeah, Pocahontas is clearly removed from reality. Her response is, oh dear, do you want billionaires to go hungry? Lady, jobs are created by entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs move their businesses where they have low taxes and high-skilled labor forces. If your state doesn't have either of those, they move to a state that does. And guess what happens when they move to that state? They create jobs. Those people pay taxes and build communities. That's economics 101, Pocahontas. Sorry.
Billionaires are not billionaires because they're stupid. Yeah. Billionaires are not billionaires because they make poor financial decisions. Now, poor financial decisions and risk are two separate things because you have plenty of billionaires that have lost it all at one point. In fact, I think almost all the stories of billionaires is they've lost it all at one point. You have to take risk. But this idea that the Democrat Party is just going to raise taxes and not see any sort of repercussions elsewhere in the broader economic picture is absurd. But that's the way that they act. They act as if everything happens in this vacuum and that a decision does not have any unintended consequences. When the truth is that every decision has plenty of unintended consequences. And most of the time, those unintended consequences, with a little bit of forethought, it could be taken into consideration, which these individuals do not take those into consideration at all. They just act and act and act in the best interest of what they believe will gather them votes and garner them votes. If they put Mamdani in and he raises taxes to help affordability, that screams of one thing and one thing only: socialism. We already know Mamdani is a socialist. Basically, he's saying because the general public and corporate America can't solve the rising affordability costs or the rising affordability problem that we've created, the government will have to fix it for you because the private sector is not doing it. That's not the case. The private sector is saying, we're leaving. If you have any sorts of brains, you will leave too. what that's doing is it's taking states that previously were cheap to live in, and it's now making those states expensive to live in because there's a demand on the housing industry, because there's a demand on everything in that city, because there's an influx of people. And we've seen that happen in parts of the country. So what happens when New York is no longer the hub of the financial industry in this country? I don't know. Is it going to move to Texas? It very well could. Will that shift everything about Texas? Probably.
Yeah, there's definitely a capital drain taking place in these major metropolitan strongholds. I mean, Los Angeles is dying, New York is dying, Chicago's dying, Nashville's prospering, Austin is prospering, Chattanooga's prospering. So, I mean, we're seeing capital and power shift in this country in real time. But I want to say one thing before we close about Pocahontas. Every time we talk about housing affordability and the conversation immediately goes to taxes, I get upset because if we were to end the Federal Reserve, end the invisible tax, which is essentially the devaluation of our currency, a huge part of the housing affordability problem would be solved because the currency would retain its value and our dollars would chase more rent dollars and more mortgage dollars. We'd have more money. We would, in other words, be able to pay our rents and our mortgages for less because our currency would have more buying power. So, I have a problem with printing money out of thin air. I have a problem with the federal income tax. If we got rid of the federal income tax and the Federal Reserve, I think housing would be affordable again. But again, those are not popular conversations to have because those are unauthorized proposals in the swamp.
Well, this has been Spiritual Insurgency. Join us every day. God bless.
Peace.